You want to start a new story, but you don't know which genre or setting to choose. There is a genre which can fit every setting, every fairing, every context. Which one is it? Saga, or action-adventure, is the most popular genre. It is favored for most stories, as it adapts easily to most of them. Why is that? Saga is the broadest genre. It is the most flexible. It can accommodate all settings. It's a genre that fits best the series format. It allows authors to create sagas easily. It may also be the most enjoyable genre in terms of characters or settings. It's the most familiar one. It's the largest in scales. It's the most adaptable one. Action-adventure or saga will often help you to create new stories more easily. The flexibility of its structure may also allow you to change of genre as the story unfolds, which makes it particularly fit to series and long-form content. Action-adventure fits almost every story. Its flexibility lies in the possibilities it opens. Sagas offer possibilities to the story, to the characters, and to the public. It's by far the most flexible genre. It is both inclusive and universal. One could write almost any story using this genre structure and make it successful. It is, by comparison, often more inclusive than horror or drama, which themes are difficult to treat. It is easier to write than comedy, which rhythm is difficult to upkeep, and it is more universal than pure action or pure adventure. Saga accommodates most story forms and most storylines. Most action-adventure story will please. Because they are accommodating stories, action-adventures bring a sense of comfort. These stories feel comfortable, for they are known. They use a fable structure, a tale structure, a legend structure. They may appear familiar also. The genre seems to be more accessible and friendly than any of the other five. The use of archetypes is instrumental to produce this effect. This genre is the most flexible one, but it's also quite limited at the same time, as its main appeal is its familiarity, making it a very inclusive and therefore a very consensual genre. Not every topic can be covered in an action-adventure story, as it targets generally a large public. Not every theme can be covered, because not every topic is welcomed in action-adventure. Not every story will be told under the action-adventure label. The difficulty to welcome the harshest element of horror is a prevalent issue with action-adventure and truly limits it. The genre is consensual, which can be both a strength and a weakness. Therefore, in terms of limit, it may lack of intensity. It may also lack of depth, making it quite shallow or even redundant, as it is rarely as innovative as other genres. Comedy is often plain in action-adventure, and the weakness of the comical situation is noticeable, as absurd or certain forms of irony are not welcome. Action-adventure will allow you to create enjoyable stories quite easily, as it instills a sense of enjoyment through the setting, the exploration, the characters, and the world. An enjoyable setting is one of the first requirements of the saga. The first setting, generally in the introduction, will be enjoyable to see, enjoyable to walk through, to visit. It will present enjoyable characters. It's generally a quite familiar setting. Further in the story, more impressive settings will be presented, creating a sense of immersion through the diversity of settings. Stories are meant to be enjoyed. That's what entertainment means. It's what it needs to deliver. And in the case of action-adventure, it's almost always the case. It is the only genre in which you could expect an enjoyable story in the traditional connotation of the word. Even comedy doesn't have to deliver this, as comedy can be quite difficult to write. Some great comedies can be painful to watch if you come to emphasize greatly with the protagonists. Most stories are meant to be enjoyed, even in the case of horror or drama. However, not whole stories will be, because of the narrow connotation of enjoyable. Here, the entertainment factor transpires from the setting. It transpires from the goal of exploration. Action adventures gives you a world you want to explore. Sagas means exploration. It doesn't deliver as much as pure adventure in terms of diversity of environment, though it is second to this genre in terms of the exploration. Most environments in the further stages will be impressive. Not all environments should be impressive. Diversity is an essential factor. You'll want to integrate some mundane settings, some simple settings. Most characters will be enjoyable, again with the diversity factor. Some of them should be unenjoyable, or even disagreeable. The enjoyable characters will be enjoyable in multiple dimensions. They will be enjoyable to meet, so the first encounter with the character will be enjoyable. They will be enjoyable to interact with, so every time the character returns to the story, they will be enjoyable. And in some cases, they may be enjoyable to part with. Now, what will make them enjoyable? Enjoyable characters, in most cases, are familiar to some extent, again, as every element of the story, but it's particularly true for characters. To create familiar character, or at least create a sense of familiarity when it comes to characters, it is highly recommended to use an archetype system and to pass allegories through your characters. By the use of symbolism, by giving each character a quirk, a simple accessory, you'll make them instantly recognizable. Action-adventure, or saga, is the genre which makes most use of archetypes. Far more than horror or comedy, even if these two other genres use a lot of allegories. And there's a simple reason to this. Action-adventure is meant to feel familiar. It is a defining characteristic. Again, this genre uses the fable structure, the legend structure. Characters created on an archetypal basis will feel more familiar because you will create a post-experience. Subsequently, when they are individualized, they will feel more enjoyable. They will, as always, require quirks to create a necessary uniqueness factor, creating a diversity between your different stories. Action-adventure is the broadest genre. It delivers in terms of scale, diversity, and continuity. Its sense of large scale enhances adventure through exploration. Adventure means exploration. In most cases, the world of your saga will be presented as dense and complex, allowing many interaction. Even if it's only a town, multiple interaction will be proposed to the characters, many of which will have multiple consequences. Generally, secondary characters will be attached to a zone in your environment. These zones should be defined early in the story, preferably before chapter 3 if you're using the 10-chapter structure. You should also start by mapping your world. Mapping your world in every kind of story will allow you to ensure a better consistency and coherence. It is particularly necessary for sagas or for large-scale adventure, as it will make exploration more intricate to the story. The larger your world, the clearer your map will need to be. Saga is a genre of diversity. The multiple interactions your character will make will open conflicts. Here, action means conflict. For this, you'll need oppositions. Oppositions between groups, oppositions between individuals. All genres are based on the creation of conflict. Action-adventure here benefits from scale, as it allows you to create different kinds of conflicts. Conflicts between individuals, which will be of low impact, or conflicts between large groups. It also, as a genre, places itself in an ideal zone. Action-adventure is often brutal, but also more detached from the consequences, as it is long form. The aftermath of a conflict in this genre is often more intense and more painful than in drama or horror, since it is felt by the character in the long run. Sagas and action-adventure are intricately linked. In this manner, it is the best genre to select if you're trying to start a series. The broadness of action-adventure makes it most appropriate for this genre in terms of character development, settings development, world development, and objectives or quests development. The diversity of the world ensures a more in-depth evolution, allowing you to create a saga more easily. The genre is intrinsically adapted for saga, as in the character's case, they will pursue a short-term objective which is directed to the story. Often, the character's short-term objective is to stop another organization or individual, or to protect a location from an organization or individual. In the long run, characters' objectives will be defined by themselves, as the long-term objective of a character is often her own growth. The balance between the two layers of objectives, short-term and long-term, allow you to develop a saga properly. It is the intricate complexity of this genre which will allow you to create depth, not as a goal, but as a mean, in order to let the world unfold. How do you depict action-adventure, and where does its cohesiveness come from? Why action-adventure? Why not action or adventure? The main difference with pure action is in the exploration. Action revolves around characters, whereas adventure focuses on environments. Action-adventure provides a balance, allowing the public to explore the world while attaching themselves to the characters. The main difference with pure adventure is the degree of violence. Action focuses on combats, whether they are fights on one-on-one, battle royale, running vehicles, or even pursuits. Adventure displays a diversity of environments. Many pure adventure stories are joyful and bright when it comes to the environment part. They go through consensual topics. Therefore, they may be adapted to a public considered childish, not as childish. Fables and tales are not per se children material. They are not necessarily adventures either. Many famous fables and tales can be classified as horror or drama. How do the other three genres integrate into the cohesiveness of action-adventure? Well, comedy is relief. Action-adventure needs more comedy. It needs funnier characters. Not just one per story, but many characters. Action-adventure needs comedic characters for most situations. Doesn't mean that the story as a whole has to become more humorous. Comedy provides relief. It allows the writer to diversify the rhythm of the story. All characters can have a humorous dimension. Even the most dramatic ones could evolve to a point where they realize their issues as a silver lining. Some painful situation may even be soothed by laughter. It is purpose here, that is, laughter concerning the situation directly, which is why the last remark is not applicable to every painful situation. It's only a tool to manage rhythm. Drama is essential if you want to create attachment. Drama is a genre of sadness, and the public should learn for this sadness through the development of the story. The combination of action-adventure and drama enlightens it. It allows to create more memorable separations, to display more memorable disappearances and deaths, to open the public's eyes on a broader perspective when it comes to drama, leaving more room for the contemplation part of sagas, as drama exacerbates the adventure dimension. How do horror integrates to action-adventure? This combination has one main advantage: brutality. As for comedy, horror in action-adventure is often shallow. Horror brings more violence while maintaining the public-friendly frame brought by action-adventure. Horror allows to instill fear in the public, to display starker consequences, to propose more difficult and painful choices to the characters. Remember, true horror is reached when the character herself becomes the monster. Horror exacerbates the action dimension of sagas.